Alright, the whole basis for recording this whole video is that I feel like we definitely need a lot more PvP focused exotics in D2, and I feel that the recent changes to some of the hunter aspects and exotics have been magnifying some of the issues that we have between the two separate sandboxes. For one, hunters got a lot of new buffs to the gunslinger on Solar Hunter subclass. Different things to give them more sustainability. They have kind of like a pseudo devour on with the on your mark aspect now. They also have a lot more power to their abilities, whether or not it's their throwing knives, grenades, things like that. And they're still looking for some ways to buff the subclass as a whole. They also buffed the supers for Void Hunter, but none of these buffs really have anything to do with PvP. Because even with the on your mark aspect, they get the healing on kill, but they need 10 stacks of on your mark. It needs numerous kills or numerous dodges and kills to get to that max stacks. So that's something that benefits PvE specifically. It can have an effect on PvP, but not much of an effect. And I think that overall that's a great take on some buffs, so that way you can make both sides of the game very happy. Just to help illustrate my point, I'm going to use two very different exotics before I get into the details. And it may seem odd at first, but I think that it'll make sense once you get along. So we have Osmiomancy gloves. This was a very popular exotic for a long time until they got numerous buffs over and over and over. But on the Stasis Warlock class, we would use these to make numerous turrets or to get kills around corners, because they could chase people around corners. It helped you to close the gap and get a quick kill. We've nerfed the lifetime, the tracking distance, the intelligence of the cold snap grenades, various things to make them almost unusable, but it's still usable in PvE. Whereas a big problem with that we have is that there's numerous exotics on the hunter class that buffs their weapon usage, their gunplay. All of these different things, such as, let's see, you have Mechanitor's Trick Sleeves for sidearms. What else do we have? We have the Dragon Shadow, just a general use. It helps at base, and then once they dodge, as a reminder, their dodge is the quickest class ability in the entire game, no matter what subclass they're running. So it's an always on exotic, and they get the extra benefits of Dragon Shadow, as you can read right along here, as soon as they dodge. And it increases their dodge to make it come back even faster. Not only do we have the Dragon Shadow, but we also have Lucky Pants. Helps with the most popular weapon in D2, which are hand cannons, an always on exotic that helps them in every single gunfight. Even Frosties to an extent, because it's still helping their sprint speed. Stompies, an always on exotic, helping them with their sprint, slide, and jumping. We had Sweetloader Slacks before, but they were reworked so that they weren't so similar to Dragon Shadow, but still helps with all of your weapon gunplay, which I'm not calling for any kind of nerfs to any of these things. I think that's all great, but I do think that Warlocks having either the choice of Transversive Steps or Ophidian Aspect and nothing else is a problem. I think that Titans having either ACD Zero Feedback Fence, which is not a gunplay exotic, it just helps them with their melee builds, which is they're very centered on. They have ACD Zero, One-Eyed Mask, which is once again not a gunplay exotic, but it's an always on, helping them to turn the fight exotic. Or they have Dune Marchers, which is the Stompies, which is the T-steps for Titans. Besides that, there aren't very many things that assist the other two subclasses in PvP. But we have a lot of exotics that help us in PvE, which is such a very weird dynamic that I feel has been getting worse and worse because it hasn't been fully addressed. It's starting to get addressed for PvE, and anybody that focuses on PvP, we fully understand that PvP is the neglected side of the game, not getting maps, not getting exotic specifics, taking a long time to get to our nerfs and buffs, but it's starting to get to a point where it's very out of hand, to the point that a lot of players were very hyped about the Warlock chess piece, Matiodoxia, getting buffed, and that's going to be an amazing buff coming Renegades. But buffs between that are Boots of the Assembler, various things of that nature, Storm's Dancer Brace, but they didn't get that many PvE buffs for Hunter. So Hunters are weak in PvE, but they're way too dominant in PvP, and the same thing for Titans. They're kind of the middle child. They're very, very, very great in PvE with the Storm's Keep barricades and different things that you can do. Still on Prismatic, they're still very good in PvP, but they could also get a lot of buffs. I'm a Warlock main, so I have more experience with this class. So I'll speak primarily on this class, but I want to speak for Titans as a whole because I'm not that selfish of a person. But going straight into it, I've spent a few minutes on this already. My ideas on some things that could be implemented that I don't feel like would be broken, but thinking in this way, even if we don't take my specific ideas, thinking in this way could be a huge step to improve just quality of life for PvP. And what they did with my Taidaxia I felt was a great idea because they have another strand focused helmet coming in Renegades. They didn't want to power creep this exotic because they're both focused on suspension. So now the Taidaxia will also buff our super damage, being our form of the Curious of the Falling Star. But it will still keep all of this, which is a great idea. Instead of making a whole new exotic that does that, just add it onto something that already exists to make it a little bit more popular. For whatever reason, this exotic isn't that popular. I feel like it's already a great exotic, but now it's going to be one of the most meta defining things in the game. I think that's great. So to start off with Warlock, because once again I have the most experience with that, I feel that Chromatic Fire would be a perfect pick for a buff because it's severely underused, and something I want to address in another video is that unnecessarily reworking or buffing things that people didn't want to be changed. But this idea is not to rework it, it is just to add on to what it already does. It already applies subclass debuffs by getting kills. So my main idea is to, once you're applying these debuffs, kind of like the perk loose change, now you get extra benefits to your weapons. But this will work not only by getting kills, because that's not going to be very helpful in PvP still, but whether or not we use a grenade, whether or not we use a melee, things of that nature to help us to apply debuffs. But we don't have an exotic across the game, across any class, that buffs pulse rifles. This would be a great exotic to add always on benefits to pulse rifles. Nothing too crazy because we don't want a high impact pulse rifle meta or anything like that, but giving pulse rifles increased strafe speed or flinch resistance, giving them increased ADS speed. Small little things like that, and then, hey, once you start applying these debuffs, now you get even further increased benefits. So it's always on, just like a Dragon Shadow, just like Lucky Pants, just like Peacekeepers, it's always on, but sticking with the exotic, once you start applying these debuffs and activating the Crystalline Transistor perk, however you pronounce it, now you start getting even more buffs. So it's a buff that PvE players is not going to break anything for them. It'll just be nice to wake up one day and now your weapons are a little bit more snappy as they're using Outbreak Perfected or whatever pulse rifle they're using in Renegades. That would be something that would be really helpful. It helps to maintain their ad clear fantasy. It adds the benefit of being able to clear ads, then carry that buff to larger targets, which is another thing I forgot to mention, which is something else that could just buff this exotic at base for PvE, is that sustained damage over time can apply these debuffs as well. If you have Arc subclass activated, you're hitting a boss, once you hit a certain threshold of damage, if you want to make it to like a moderate or a high level of precision damage specifically, now you start applying blind to the target, or you apply scorch stacks or weaken or slow or sever to the target. We already have a fragment that does that for strand, so it's not completely out of the way, not a complete crazy idea. That plays into different fragments when you damage bosses that have debuffs or light debuffs on prismatic, things of that nature. But being able to apply this effect with sustained precision damage could be a great buff for PvE, but in general, that'd be a great buff for both sandboxes. Also, the next one exotic that I really love but still needs some extra love is the Cant Filaments. This exotic I feel struggles a lot because it's still built for a previous sandbox, early Destiny 2, late Destiny 1. This would be an amazing exotic, but now it just falls behind really badly. Something that would really help this exotic if it had something besides the overload rounds when standing in a rift, because we have so many ways to damage overloads, anti-barriers, unstoppables. It's not as necessary. I'm not saying to take it away, I'm just saying that that's not enough. Also, if I have this exotic on, the idea would be to not run Feed the Void. But if I don't run Feed the Void, I get a lesser version of Devour. I get less grenade energy, I get less health back, and that's not really helpful. That's not really what you want. So if you can buff the amount of Devour that you get from this exotic, that would be perfect. Now I have more flexibility with my subclass, but focused on PvP. Hey, while Devour is active, why not give me more flinch resistance? Why not give me increased ADS speed? Why not give me extra reload speed? Or hey, while Devour is active, I get increased movement speed. I'm not infringing on the territory of hunters being the speedy boys in the sandbox because I have to have Devour active. But if I move faster once I pop my rift, I'm not tied to my rift. I can stay in my empowering rift if I would like to, but I have the option to leave it. I have the option to go to seek out a kill. I have increased flinch resistance, helping me to stay in the fight to get that kill. I have increased ADS speed to aim down sights faster, to get my target in line, to get my shots in, so that I can continue rolling from kill to kill to kill. Because right now, all it does is give me Devour, and that's not really enough to entice people to want to use an exotic that is really great with on the idea of it. But it needs more buffs. I feel that giving gunplay or movement benefits when Devour is active would be a perfect step in the right direction for this one. The next couple of exotics, they can probably just be thrown in the same bucket. Exotics such as Swarmers, Osmiomancy Gloves, or even Controverse Hold, or where's the other one? It's about to be buffed. Nothing Manacles. It's up at the top. Nothing Manacles. I don't know which one, but I feel like any of these exotics would be very, very appreciative of a buff. I don't know which one, but I feel like any of those would be great examples of a buff that you could try, which is start applying debuffs, you get increased movement speed, and you get increased handling. That would be super helpful in PvP because I could throw out a stasis turret, it starts hitting, applying slow, or I could just throw out the regular cold snap grenade. Once it hits and it freezes, now I get increased movement speed. I can run in just as quick as I used to be able to, if not a little bit quicker, to close the gap, get the kill. Nothing Manacles or Controverse Hold is applying weaken to my enemies. They're weaker. I get a lot faster a sprint speed to get in to close the gap to get the kill. Swarmers, they unravel targets. I do more damage to unravel targets at base. Or similar to the artifact mod that we have right now. Where is it? Pack Tactics, dealing damage with threatlings increases threatling damage. A lesser version of that. I'm sure that they would love to bring that back for other classes, but Broodweaver was nerfed inadvertently because they had to nerf thread runners with their double dodge threaded specters and their double threatling grenades a while back when the subclass first got released. So they nerfed it across the board, which nerfed the one class that's supposed to benefit from them the most. Very crazy, but that's what happened. So giving us an exotic that buffs threatling damage would be helpful without breaking the sandbox for everybody again. But hey, I do more damage to unravel targets. I throw a grenade out, it unravels my enemies. Now I can move faster, or even if I don't get increased movement speed, I can do more damage to them while they're unraveled in PvP. Still having to jump through a lot of hoops unnecessarily, but just trying to throw out any kind of ideas to help with these exotics being buffed. But that's all I had for Warlock, at least in this video. More ideas, sure, but I don't want to overwhelm anybody. I really want these ideas or just the concepts to be taken seriously, and hopefully they can be implemented in some type of way. For Titans, a scary exotic that I really hated, but it was overly nerfed and now it's just useless. For Antaeus wards, they could really put the increased slide distance or whatever the slide boost was back on this exotic, and it's not going to break the Crucible in any way at all. And some type of other buff to incentivize people to try it out, to give them other options besides One-Eyed Mask, ACD, and Dune Marchers, and nothing else. They could get better handling after they reflect damage. So if they slide in, you try to hit them with a slug shotgun shot, it reflects. It either hits my enemy or it hits the wall. It just doesn't hit me. Now that it's reflected, I get increased damage. I can pull out my shotgun just that much faster to clean up the kill. Maybe they get class ability energy on specific types of kills. You can tie it to kinetic, you can tie it to their subclass, super element, or when they kill people with reflective vents actives. So God forbid they slide in and they reflect back a golden gun shot at somebody and they get that kill, they get all their class ability energy back. Or they slide in and they reflect back a slug shotgun hit or a sniper shot and it kills the person that shot at them, they get their class ability energy back. Very high skilled, a lot of timing, but that's something that can be incorporated. If that buff is active, hey, you get a kill, you get your class ability energy back. Gives some type of a high ceiling reward to encourage people that are actually good at the game, that aren't just sliding around with Jug Shield and Antaeus Wards, just completely brain dead. It gives them some type of incentive to use it. The other exotic, one that I really, really love in PvE, is Ashen Wake. I think Frostbolt has a video compilation on his Twitter page of old school Ashen Wake. I'm a big fan of the new stats systems. I'm a big believer in if you build into a stat, even if it's super, super aggravating, that's fine, but they built into it, so they deserve the benefit. Allow Ashen Wake to one-shot people. If they build into 130, 150 grenade, let them be able to one-shot people. If they're at 3 stacks of Roaring Flames, there's no reason why at 3 stacks of Roaring Flames and over 100 grenade, they're still not one-shotting people. Is it going to be broken? I don't think so. Just move out the way. But it'll be fun. If it's going to be that broken, they can tweak the damage to cause them to have to go a little bit higher. But if the grenade is over 100, and most people in PvP are going to want to run very high health stat at higher levels, like in comp or trials, it should handle itself, because they're going to have to sacrifice super, have to sacrifice some other stats in order to get such a high grenade stat for that to be possible. Don't put it at 190. That's just egregious. That's excessive. 130, 140 grenade stat at base, no Roaring Flames active. Ashen Wake should be able to kill somebody. I think that you can get a kill on Warlock with Touch of Flame and fusion grenades with, I think, one shot from a 140 hand cannon, and then it to the head. So I think that's 80, and you throw a grenade on them. I'm pretty sure that's a kill every single time. That's still jumping through hoops, but it's a shame that Ashen Wake also cannot get a kill on somebody. The exotic that's completely built around the grenade. They can buff that in some type of way using the stat system. We should be able to use these stat systems to tweak certain things. If rapid fire scouts are an issue, tweak the damage to where if they have precision instrument, they have to build into 105 weapon stat, 110 weapon stat. Nothing too high, but they have to build into it to get that very nice kill. We can use the stat system a lot more, being able to tweak things and help it to be better in PvP. Besides that, give Lordly Splendor Restoration times 2. I don't think you really need to do anything else with the exotic besides that. Maybe there's some other things you could do, but I don't see a reason. If I've never played with OG Sunspots, it sounds kind of crazy, sounds kind of busted, but if we're not playing with OG Sunspots from the 2.0 subclasses, there's no reason why they can't have Restoration times 2, I feel, on this one exotic. But those are my thoughts. Please, in the comment section, let me know how you feel. I would love to have suggestions, but also just share this with anybody that you think may hear it, that could be able to kind of amplify the idea of adding more PvP focused perks to our already existing unused exotics that could give a huge buff to even the playing field. Because if you look at Trials Report from any date during the Edge of Fate or from episode 3, 2, and 1, it is so wide of a gap between all of the Hunter exotics and all of the Titan and Warlock. I think out of the top 15 or 16, you might have, not including the exotic class items, it's only ever T-Steps and a Fadian Aspect, and nothing else ever cracks that top 10. I think I saw Controverse hold one weekend when it got buffed, and every once in a while Getaway Artist will pop in every once in a while. There's a lot more buffs that we could add to these that can make the playing experience a lot better, and also none of the buffs that I mentioned, except for maybe the Resto times 2 and Lordly, but besides that, none of those buffs badly affect the PvE sandbox at all. It will not be noticed, it will not be felt, nothing to worry about. Oh, and last thing, Karnstein Armlets, Claws of Ankara, that should just be one exotic. They should combine that. Both of these exotics suck. These are terrible. They should combine Claws and Karnstein. They've already set the precedent that they can combine 2 exotics. So they took Foe Tracer, combined it with Knucklehead Radar, made Knucklehead Radar great. Made Foe Tracer like a B level exotic, still good. Last thing before I get off, Karnstein, Claws, become one exotic, give a buff to the melee stat, at base, a higher buff after melee kill, movement speed benefit, something along those lines, because it sucks for both sandboxes. They're both just terrible for both sandboxes, completely awful. Combine those two. I appreciate y'all for watching. Plenty of videos coming out later. Hope to see y'all soon. Bye.